Welcome to Complexity Made Simple. My name is Paul Allen, and the subject of today's newsletter, we are going to take a look at how to improve your CPK by stopping process adjustment. No process adjustment for operators, no process adjustment for technicians. No one is to adjust the process. So let's take a look at this. We're going to do improve your CPK. How are we going to do it? No process adjustments. And just before I go into the details of exactly why this is the most important thing you can learn, if you want to know more, you could always buy my book. It's called Drink Tea and Read the Paper. Why is it called Drink Tea and Read the Paper? Well, it's very straightforward, because that's what your people should do. They should sit down, drink tea and read the paper. They shouldn't do any process adjustments. That's why I entitled the book exactly that. Drink tea and read the paper. Okay, so let's take a look at the technicalities of why no process adjustments. Your technical staff simply cannot understand your process well enough to make adjustments work. Let's take a look at what's going on. Let's look at what they're adjusting. Let's say that they're adjusting just one dial on your machine. I'm going to suggest that maybe it's temperature. And obviously when they adjust the temperature, what they're expecting to get is some kind of response out of your process. Now, if all they were allowed to do was just adjust the temperature and then see what happened, and everything else was fixed, they'd be able to see something happening and they'd get a certain amount of process knowledge. Let's take that out. But of course, they're not just going to adjust temperature. They're going to adjust other variables as well. Let's put a second variable in here. Let's say that they're going to adjust time, and that's going to go up and down. Obviously within a window, there's going to be an allowable window for them to work, there's going to be an allowable window for them to adjust. Now what they've got to do is, of course, move time and temperature and see how the process starts to perform. Now this is getting a little bit more complicated, because obviously you can make this thing start to move over here like this. This starts to get two-dimensional. Yeah, so it starts to get really complicated, but not as complicated as it's going to get, because there's going to be a third variable that you're going to allow them to play about with. Let's say you allow them to play about with, going backwards that way. Now you allow them to play with pressure. Now they've got a three-dimensional problem on their hands. Now at this point you're going, yeah, but it's just three variables. Yeah, you're going, well, it's just three variables. But if the temperature has got, let's say, 20 choices, and the time has got 20 choices, and we'll say the pressure has got more choices, so it's got 40 choices. Straight away, how complicated is this process getting? Not just being able to hit the target, by the way. They're trying to hit the target. Somewhere in here is what you're trying to hit with tolerances. And they're going to wind on these three things and hopefully understand how to hit that target. Now, let's see how many combinations you've got. 20 times 20, which is 400. times 40. What's that? That's 1600. They already have now 16,000 ways of setting up the machine just with 3 variables. But if you let them play about with more variables, now it starts to get complex in a way I can't even draw. However, I can show you this complexity being created. Now we're going to take a look at a video of what happens when you move 6 variables in a process. Let's take a look at this thing and you'll appreciate how complicated your processes are and why this must always be stopped. Let's take a look. Okay, so we're going to start off by just considering just the one dimension, just the one variable. There it is. So we talked about that already. Then of course what we're going to do is we're going to open up the 2 dimensions. There's the 2. That's easy. Now we're going to draw the cube that I put in there. Here it goes. So here's the cube that I drew. But now of course it's going to add a 4th dimension. It's going to add a 4th variable. Let's see what that looks like. There it goes. He puts a cube inside a cube. And now that 2nd cube starts moving around. Okay, now it's getting complicated. Now that's 4 dimensions. It's going to put a 5th one in a minute. Yeah, so suddenly you have 5 dimensions. And now there's a 6th dimension, and there is the 6-dimensional process. In other words, you're messing with 6 variables. Now let me stop this for a second. How do you think your technician is going to understand that? I don't care whether he's worked in your company for 1,000 years. He's never going to understand how to get that to work properly. You have to stop him from playing with the dials, otherwise he's going to create this complexity. And now of course think about it the other way. The more you fix, because now it's taking the dimensions away, the more you fix the dials, the more you say, no, pressure has to sit exactly at this point, time has to sit exactly at this point, the more you take this complexity away and you wind it down. Now we just had 4 dimensions because we fixed 2. Now we're going to fix a 3rd one. Now we've only got 3 dimensions to understand. The more you fix this, the easier it becomes to understand your process. And of course eventually you take all the dimensions away, and what do? Well, you hit one spot, and of course that spot is going to be the target that you're after. Now that is why you don't want people playing with the dials. What you want to do, I've drawn this picture enough times by now, the input-output diagram. You need to take the variables. They're not always dials on the process, by the way. And maybe we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's put the 6th one in. Yeah, so variable 1, variable 2, etc. What you need to do is to simply, and this is process control. This is how easy process control is. This is how easy it is to make more money. What do over this side of the diagram? You come up with rules and you fix as many of these as you can. Now if they're dials, it's dead easy. Yeah, time, temperature, pressure. You just come up with a number, you name it and you fix it, and then you audit it and you make the operators, you make the technicians adhere to this. Now of course some of these variables could be You know, how often you clean the filter. They could be dimensions or features from incoming material, which is more difficult to control. But you fix them, you reduce the variability. This is what Six Sigma's about. You reduce the variability as much as you reasonably can. Otherwise, what do you end up with? You end up with that highly complex. I only drew 6 dimensions. That videos only contain 6 dimensions. You can see other videos, by the way, if you look for them on YouTube, a 12-dimensional space. In other words, when you allow 12 variables to move in your process, how complex does it get? If you remember the name of my company, Complexity Made Simple. Why do I use that phrase? Because I'm using this technique. Why do I say drink tea and read the paper? It's because if you use this technique as an operator or technician, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Because think about this logically. If I've got variability coming from my material, I can't fix it by winding on one of the other dials. I had variability here. Now I have 2 variables that I didn't have before. How can that be fixing the problem? That can only make the process worse. Now, true process control, improving your capability, fix the inputs, drink tea and read the paper, and make piles and piles of cash.